Yes, greetings and the best of salutations. That will be responsibility for one's own civility. Responsibility for one's own civility. Being civil, a people, a population, a nation, a government, community, a family. Still with wisdom, I realize this here too, in this wise, is that due to um, population um, increase or decrease, is that one must take in our interactions one with another, that certainly that which we were, you know, created for, and is to issue for a purpose. Everything was raised up for a purpose, and for us as humans, we are raised up not to be, cruel, cruel to one another, and a mean-spirited person is a cruel person. But this coming into complete civility, even though I said responsibility for one's own civility, that which makes us complete. As we were raised up for a purpose, not to be cruel, a mean-spirited person, or those who are in positions of who have the wherewithal to use their authority in a manner and way which is to show, mercy, not to, um, you know, victimize people with of cruelty. So the knowledge and the information that one has gathered and obtained should not be used to abuse and victimize people with cruelty, being cruel to them. And there was a song that was written by a gentleman says, "Don't be cruel." But in the some songs that people say has there is something to it. But even though the intentions and that which what that which is intended for, it may be something different, but there is something there uh, in one's inner man, and the voice of the soul um, permeates and cry out in a manner and way, but yet due to the contamination of outside influences that we are, some people do unable to register what the soul is saying, you know. Yes. So the message becomes, distorted, distorted. Yes. So this um being cruel is like a message to the world is, don't be, come to your humanity, don't be cruel, is and those who are rule this, who are in a position of authority, don't misuse your authority. Shared responsibility, shared authority, and shared power. Don't misuse your one's authority by, by not showing mercy, mercy, mercy. Yes, there's another artist in his or her, the spirit of his or her soul was crying out saying, mercy, mercy, mercy me. You know, uh, mercy, mercy me. Things ain't what they used to be over this crowded land. How much more can, you know, I think we withstand? And then I think it says demand. Yes. So that which means that which is, what can we withstand? We talk about uh, the one's capacity now, one's capacity, because when you deal with capacity, you deal with tolerance, and which is designed to readdress, give something a new address when it comes to uh, variegated or a garden or diversity. Diversity, moving from a persecuted minority to a privileged majority, because the privileged ones, hmm, are those who have came out unto this plane of existence to serve as a with a complementary, it is a complementary, it is to complement this plane of existence, and those that are privileged has nothing to do with his or her material success, but those who are privileged, who understand the knowledge and the information that he or she, and even any wealth that he or she has obtained. Now I pulled wealth in there. Now is a regard that they don't use that and be cruel, yes, to one another. Yes, don't be cruel to one another. Yes, so it says that wisdom brings rewards and mockery brings suffering. A reward is a represents districting or a jurisdiction. Yes, and it is also a payment that one is making due to his or her service that he or she has rendered to the world, to the society. And I'm not necessarily talking about monetary. I'm talking about being rewarded or placed in a certain um, uh, jurisdiction for a labor or a activity or a service that one has provided, in a service that one is providing, being on this plane of existence, meaning one must know his role and know that he or she is raised up for a purpose. Like all of this creation, natural creation, is done so with a purpose. And that we do not learn, we learn not to, make a mockery of each other, you know? Yes. And that's a waste of time. That's why it says 1,000 years is not nothing but a day in the sight of God, which means there is no time waste. There is a quickening right away. Yes, because maybe if I see, um, it's about inclusion, not exclusion. Um, if there are different so-called ethnicities of the same human species, I'm not overlooking. If there's three or four or five or six, I'm not overlooking, any of the different ethnicities, because I want to make sure that the message is a message of what? Of oneness. Oneness. Yo, man, it's powerful there. Yes, oneness. Because oneness is stronger than conflict and unity is strong than diversity. So it is the wisdom that brings forth rewards. This type or that wisdom. And that's the wisdom of the soul of humanity, the soul that is housed in this body that cries out. So this suffering, uh, he or she is, if he or she is unteachable, uh, is the wicked one. Wickedness, the wicked one is unteachable, and when one corrects him or her, they respond with an attitude of hatred by lashing out. Now, what did that mean in this society? If you see any ethnic group who has made some progress, and then there's another ethnic group that will lash out with hatred, and there will be, what they call threats of to do harm to them, because that means that he or she himself uh, hasn't came into his or her or their civility, their peace. Their they have been irresponsible with their humanity. They have been irresponsible with their humanity. So then there become verbal assaults and insults and abuses. If a woman who has been violently raped or taken advantage of, and he or she go around masquerading to be something that they're not, whatever their title is, whatever their religion is, whatever it so be, because he or she um, is not dealing with their own um, uh, abuse, mental, emotional, psychological, or otherwise. So what that does is they are they have been made a mockery of, and then therefore they go around making mockery of that which they profess to be, and that which they profess to be, that's not what they are living out. Yes. And that's why it's not good to reward, you know, bad behavior. And that's why it's not good for us to be an enabler to people, because people start to think that this is accepted. So when one comes and shares something with you, what has transpired with them, they say that this is not accepted, not acceptable. So they're not accepting what they're saying. The soul is crying out when it comes to being responsible for their own civility, when it comes to their peace, that the soul is crying out saying, well, this is not acceptable. And they are really correcting the one who had participated in the act of abuse. In their wicked behavior, they are correcting them. Now, and in that correction, one who don't heed that correction, that means that they themselves are just, has not grown up and crying out for attention. Yes. So that's why it's not good to create an environment of a hate psychosis. And then when it comes to social comparisons that we have, and that which we profess to be, and that we are not measuring up with that which so we are not taking responsibility for our civility. And when you don't take responsibility for your civility as being a global citizen of humanity, the population, the cells that populate in your mind, they will increase. The wickedness will increase. The abuse will increase. The deception will increase. The hatred will increase. The emotional disturbances will increase. The demeaning, the degrading, the demanding, the disrespect will increase the population of the cells and the thinking that is going on in your mind. And therefore, you will act out in a manner and in a way that will connect with other cells. Huh? But the cells is with other people. And then they think that is acceptable. And the victim starts to live his or her life as if that is acceptable. But when the victim says it's not acceptable, because the soul cries out and it resists naturally that this is not accepted. And this is not acceptable. And then they go to a place and connect with other souls who help to cultivate and facilitate that which is not acceptable. Then therefore there is the healing, and the healing does not mean that the damage never existed. That means that it does not control you. So therefore the population of that type of abuse, of making a mockery of one's humanity, instead of it increase in population, instead it starts to decrease because it has no control over you anymore. Yes, it does not imprison you. So yes, that's why I say that it is a responsibility for any one of us to take and resume control over his or her civility. Peace be unto you. Yes. So yes, and we see that this abuse is continuing to be uh, facilitated and orchestrated in a very sophisticated way. Now, let's look at this in a compartmentalized manner, if I may say. When people, organizations, family groups take responsibility because they're serving their own interests. But in serving your own interests, it can be done such in a sophisticated wickedness, deceit manner that people start, for example, there was a sister, I believe her name was Gloria Richardson or something, in the 60s. I believe she was a part of, protests and fighting for injustice, and I think a president told her to stop a protest, and she told the president that he can go to hell. And she was supposed to be scheduled to speak at the March of Washington, but she was denied because she refused to listen to what the president said. One who was in authority, but there was no mercy shown to her by her own so-called, her own kind, her own group of people, because she refused to take the advice of the authority of the one who was in power, and the people who are her own so-called people are trying to, get in a position where they can do some things that would serve their own interests, because that's all they was doing, was serving their own self-interest. But the key to it all was that they wanted mercy. But did they want mercy from the one who was in authority that can give them that mercy? But yeah, they did. We're talking about a mercy that is beyond the individual, biological, but a mercy that is something that is considered to be unseen. And I'm not talking about nothing that's very delusional, because we were unseen, but the thought comes to someone's mind, and the thought comes to one mind, and mom and daddy got together, and therefore the invisible became visible. But I'm talking about the sophistication of the wickedness, man, that makes us to become at odds with one another. So so she didn't get a chance to talk. S.B. Fuller, that particular part of history, if I may use that, the group of people tried to destroy him when he said, man, I ain't got to go around begging these people for anything. There's opportunity everywhere, and I go make it. What's the point? Not only the sophistication of the wickedness, but at the same time, the increasing population to think that this is the way to go and this is what you do. But yet, that becomes accepted, which is unacceptable. Another story, if I'm trying to make this clear as possible. But we got to deal with this thing, man, because this thing is so, I mean, man, this people, nation, family, they only serving their own interests. If you don't serve their interests, that's why there's a saying in one group, organization, that say their name that, there are no permanent friends, no permanent enemies, only permanent interests. Yeah, truth cannot be sacrificed to any interest. Because truth is the cause that impacts the results of one's reality. So yeah, here we go. Then there was another sister who recently shared something, and now she's getting a lot of notoriety, so to speak. But there are other individuals who need that notoriety, who need some finance, who need some wealth, who need those things. But yet she's not, because she don't fit the image. She don't fit the model. She don't fit the attitude or the responsibility to serve the interests of their wickedness, to serve the interests of their deception. Yes. Thus take not from her ability and the title of her of saying beautiful words in her creativity. But what's behind all of that? Huh? There was another sister who refused to ride the bus in Virginia. I forgot the sister name. Then another sister came, but the first sister, she did it, but she didn't get no notoriety. She didn't get no popularity, but she didn't fit the model. It does not mean, but her intentions were pure and genuine. She wasn't looking to be seen nor to be heard. She did it because it was in her heart. Her reward was not to be seen. Who do we want to bring attention to? Who are we looking for attention to get attention from? So we must learn in the society that surely we must coexist, but we must take responsibility for our own civility, in our own peace, and be a mercy, and show mercy, and not be cruel one with another. And what would be the model, and what would be the guide? It would be you, and it would be I. So don't get so caught up on the sophistication and the wickedness and that which the wicked is behind the success of others, or put them in a position where they are adding to their success of the population control in one's thinking now, where he or she is become programmed and unable to deprogram him or herself unless the one who's controlling the program take out that chip and then place it with another chip. So therefore, one's thinking has been manufactured. It's not authentic. It's not real. It is artificial and it's superficial, because it's like something or someone who's behind it take pleasure in controlling your thinking, your behavior, your attitude, your moods, your actions, and your thoughts. But the soul that is in each and every one of us I don't think that it is programmed that way. Only because the DNA says, huh, that each and every one of us are different. Each blade of grass is different. So that's the variegated. That is the diversity. That is the garden. And if we continue to produce what we need for the betterment of humanity, or development of our intellect, for the betterment of humanity, and appreciate and honor the uniqueness and the beauty in us all, and not trying to control or manipulate that in a unnatural, unhealthy way, and seeking the reward by making mockery of one another in our attitude, in our attainment, by creating a hostile, envious, hatred, jealousy environment with verbal insults and abuses, trying to defame each other's character. Because character is the outgrowth of one's humanity. To publicly ashame, to publicly abuse, to publicly insult one another, that's akin to murder. You're trying to murder that soul, or the humanity that is in that person. Lo and behold, it says that when wisdom is personified by way of a woman, yeah, appeals to everyone in a manner, in a way, to get your attention. But a fool ignores the signs. A fool ignores the signs. You can tell the condition of a people by the attitude, the attire, of the women. That's kind of a rough thing to say. But something is trying, and listen, when we think of attire, which means how one can, and forgive me, how one can try to clothe or cloak him or herself by continuing to give him or herself external therapy without internal clarity. I'm referencing something in order to bring this, make this point, if I may use that word. It's not to demean and degrade or put anyone down. And the attitude is in one's thinking. Remember, we're talking about being responsible for one's own civility, one's own citizenship, within him or hers very own soul. I share this in this wise. The key to social life is family. Those who participate in it, they find their joy, because those who do not find joy in misery. Rules of engagement. Before their eyes can see, they must temporarily be incapable of tears and emotions. Too much emotion without enough logic. They must get out of the way to hear the truth and overcome hurt, pain, and stress. Because social stress leads to mental pain, and mental pain leads to physical harm. We must take responsibility, resume responsibility for our own civility, our own peace. Before you can hear, you must temporarily lose your sensitiveness and become coherent. Before the voice can speak in one's another presence, it must have lost the power to wound. Knowing that there is balance, understanding speaks clearly. Excuse me. Before the soul can stand on its own merit of honor, dignity, and integrity in the presence of another, if you look at a child, this child wants to walk because it wants to stand on its own conviction. Its feet must be washed and cleansing of the heart and the spirit, the heart of the intellect. When knowledge is applied, it becomes intelligence. Before progress can be pursued, the mind must constantly be emptied and renewed. Remember, we're always trying to convince ourselves there is something more. There's much more to be learned. Because ignorance is the result of hostility, as if there's nothing else to be learned. That what you think you've learned, that what you think you know, you come to realize that there's more to be learned. And what we must learn to do is to take and resume responsibility for our own civility, our peace, not in a artificial and super way for the betterment of our intellect, for the betterment of humanity. The mind must consistently be emptied and renewed. Be a renewed, transformed by the renewing of your mind. It's transformative. Power is transformative. We must be impeccable. 6, we must be impeccable with our words, speak with integrity. Do your best not to speak presumptuously. Everything that you do is a teaching moment. Learn to say what you mean. Please avoid using the word to speak against yourself. I repeat, please avoid using the word to speak against yourself. The development of your intellect, because the sales that we put out there, sales is imprisonment. Be aware of the inward conversations that we have of ourselves create our circumstances. This is a population that is being, the thinking is being increased. In the manner way in which we think of ourselves. How so? Because the manner way in which we interact and treat ourselves. We must not become desensitized and numb to that. Don't become an opponent of yourself. Don't hate yourself. Don't disrespect yourself. When you do that, you won't do that to others. I'm still talking about coming into taking responsibility for one's own civility, your own citizenship. I ain't talking about a citizenship of a particular nationality or country. I'm talking about a citizenship of this farmland, of this universe. Yes. Excuse me. Do not hold yourself in contempt. This court of law. Meaning inferior position or gossip leading to division and fear as it pertains to each other. Use the power of your words in the direction of truth, which is the cause that affects the reality of one's reality. We distinguish myths from reality. 7, do not take anything personally. Nothing others do is because of you. What others say and do is a projection of their reality. When you are mature and secure within yourself as it pertains to others' opinions and actions, you won't be the victim of needless suffering. Needless suffering. Not saying that's happening, but needless suffering. Don't make assumptions. Find courage to ask questions and take and express what you really want. Communicate with others as clearly as you can to avoid misunderstanding. The greatest distance between us all is a misunderstanding. It is said the worst distance between two people is the what? The misunderstanding. Sadness Come from a sadist, one who takes pleasure in hurt, harming, and endanger one another, inflicting injury, mental, emotional, sexual, psychological, physical, drama. Just this one agreement, you can completely transform your life. Always do your best. Change from moment to moment. It will be different when you are healthy instead of sick. Under any circumstances, do your best and avoid self judgment and self abuse. 5 point concept for a happy life: responsibility when it comes to one's civility. Use people, not things. Love people, not things. The past is a place of reference and not a place of residence. Set peace of mind as your highest goal and organize your life around it. And 5, may your character preach louder than your words. In closing, the antidote. This inspirational point of expression of taking responsibility, of coming to complete civility or civility of your peace, whereas we are no threat to one another, coexisting with one another, understanding sophistication of others who manipulate and maneuver in a very sophisticated, tricky, deceptive way, huh? That puts out dangle artificial trappings. See right through that, which will lead to which is dealing with delusion versus happiness. Happiness is the joy that you feel when you pursue your potential. So we have the potential to rise above the function of this material world. Delusion, becoming very unable to reason, become mentally incapacitated, and becoming so programmed and so dependent on the programming system that someone has created for their self-interest, and therefore you become like a guardian and protector of that interest. Yes. So the antidote is in this wise, is that hopefully this method will help give insight to what's going on when it comes to being able to um, uh, come into take the responsibility of one's own civility. Yes. So in doing so, we will find that necessary guidance that we need, being at peace when it comes to mercy, when it comes to uh, bringing forth a message that will ensure uh, the cooperation and trust with being balanced life um, of the integrated society of stability. Yes. Doing so, we will eliminate unwholesome mental attitudes and replace them with virtuous, wholesome attitudes, which will serve as a benefit of each other as well as others. By doing so, we dispel negative self image that perpetuates hatred, rage, as we engage in healthy and whole conversations. To overcome delusion, we must cultivate wisdom, insight, and right understanding learning to experience reality exactly as it is without distortions of ourselves. Yes, and may we continue to fight in a manner and way that will continue to instill the right of self determination. And we deal with some of these symptoms when it comes to being delusional or even being irresponsible, of not taking responsibility for one's own civility, negative self image, low self esteem. And then we deal with depression. The energy has been depleted. It's like the continuity of our confidence in cooperating with one another, always being depleted but never replenished, always sucking the life out from one another. There are so many disturbances that we have with technology and so forth and so on that really um, gets us off focus from what we need to focus on, because the best project one can work on is him or herself. We must learn how to cultivate selflessness and generosity as opposed to the attachment, which is the source of all conflict. Problems are associated with not letting go, and it leads to retaliation. It says in the English Bible, I will give you the peace that surpasses all understanding. That means not to have a retaliatory spirit. We must learn to move and keep it moving, move again from victim to victory. We don't want to give rise to what we mistakenly believe and act as if the source of our happiness is outside of ourselves. We can practice acts of selflessness, service, and charity, offering care and assistance to others in any way we can. This is the honorable quality. Free ourselves, free yourself, and free myself. And remember, the more we help others, the more we help ourselves. Yes. Common Humanity Mission, promoters of the value of self worth, but not as an enabler now. We help people, but not as an enabler. Let's be clear with that. And it's the sophistication and wickedness of this, of our programming system, our thinking. But yes, promoters of the value of self worth, communicating with precision through 5.5 channels of communication: understanding, tolerance, temperance/temperament, confidence, and respect. The mandate is to cultivate the potential of knowledge that is in us all. The mission is to promote the value of self worth. May we move from a persecuted minority to a privileged majority, move from victim to victory. And the mandate is to cultivate the potential of knowledge that is in us all. If I didn't share that. And the mission, once again, is promote the value of self worth. And we always say, give to the gift of social literacy. If you want to donate $1, $5, $10, $20, $50, $100 to the mission, to promote the value of self worth, give to the gift, the cause, give to the gift of social literacy, because our social interaction skills are diminishing. And someone is taking something. Don't allow someone to take control over your social interaction skills. And those who have the social interaction skills know this by way of their talent, their skills. But people who have the resources will use the resource and take the talents and skills of others and make them be part of their social milieu, huh? Because it serves their self-interest. And therefore, the population, that population become controlled and the other population become controlled. That means you're under a spell. thought manipulation, mind control. And that's imprisonment. That's imprisonment. Yes. You know how there are certain, certain people, artists, whatever, have money, the age or whatever. They control it, man. They controlling everything. But some have wised up, some have wound up in the past, some are wising up. Even when someone controls your time, you know. It says there's two states in the United States that don't deal with daylight saving time. You know what I'm saying? And then you control, how much time. Nah, time is time. You can't chronicleize it. You can't control it. Arizona and Hawaii, they don't deal with daylight saving time. More power to them. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. So, give to the gift of social literacy. And remember, always this here. Truth is the cause that affects or impacts the results of one's reality. And what is family? That we learn how to cause is that we learn how to communicate as a family, our humanity, because that's what we are communicating one with another, if we are family or if we are not. Until next time, Reverend Marley Moore Kevin, teachers of teachers, preachers of preachers. When it comes to reverence from the heart, reverence the womb that gave birth to my existence. Until next time, the Cash App is CH Mission. CH Mission. Until next time, talk to you.